Yesterday was the State of the Union speech. Wow. It was something, my friends. It was something, for lack of a better term. Just plugging some things in, getting ready for the live right now, but wow. We covered it live here, everyone, the whole 2 hours. And it was something. Let me just get ready. Let me pull the stream up. And we'll go from there. So I hope everybody's doing well. I hope you're all fully recovered from that nonsense yesterday. I don't even know. I don't even know what to call it. I mean, it was for those of you who were here yesterday with us. Thank you for joining us. For those of you that had the good sense not to tune in and waste your time watching the State of the Union, I absolutely respect and applaud that decision as well. But it was something. I think yesterday was such a high energy day. Especially here in this community at Synocracy, it was such a high energy day. It was a train wreck of a dumpster fire game event. That I hear you, man. FRH, how are you? Laverne, I hope I said your name right. I apologize if I said it incorrectly. Welcome. How are you? Irish Aggie, what's going on? Tina, you did end up watching it. It's hard. It's hard not to, and it's hard to. It was not like anything I've ever seen. And I think, hey Paul, how are you? Hey Aggie, I'm sorry, I said hi to Aggie already. Hey Patty Ann, how are you? I think yesterday was such a high energy day, right? Because of the State of the Union. I know on my end, I had, 2 interviews. We had Congresswoman Mary Gay Scanlon, and then we had congressional candidate Salam Bhutti. Both of those interviews are posted now, so please check them out when you have a chance. And then we had a lot of work with Chorus. There was a lot of posting going on, and then we just ran. Then we started the State of the Union nonsense started, and we kind of ran through that until 11 o'clock. I want to go a little bit, maybe just kind of go a little lighter today. Not lighter in terms of content, just lighter in terms of preparation. Thank you so much, Aggie. I appreciate it. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being there. So Don Lemon was good, Patty Ann. I haven't. I miss Don Lemon. I haven't had time for the last couple of weeks to really watch his lives. I'm going to start making time though. I love the way he. I love the activist that he's become, like sort of an activist reporter. But he has some. He has a really efficient way as a longtime journalist and host of explaining things and sort of clarifying them, and he brings on some really good guests too. So I'm glad I'm glad that he helped you digest it a little bit too. I've got to watch Don a little bit more too because I find his analysis and the analysis of his guests just helpful. And he's just a good person, right? He's like there's a Yiddish word called a mensch. He's just a mensch. He's a decent guy. He has Tina. He's in essence become an activist. I mean, he's a journalist. He's a reporter. But I think once the CNN shackles, the corporate shackles were taken off of him, and once he started discovering this independent media space, and then once, especially since he was arrested. But even before that, he really kind of found his niche and I feel like he found his way to be able to express his voice and to be a real force for effectuating the salvation of our democracy. So I really love his stuff now. Anyway, you know what? I have this weird to figure out how to get rid of that. There it is. I have this weird thing. There we go. That's gone. It was like a text box I tried to put up in my streaming software. So I think today, let's just talk a little bit about the State of the Union. Just digest it a little bit more. I really haven't prepared much today for you for the live, but let's talk about the State of the Union a little bit. Let's hash it out a little bit more, and then there's this. We'll sort of briefly cover this art. I mean, maybe not so briefly, but this story. I did some posting on it yesterday. It was some Epstein file stuff that I don't know if you missed or not, but it's important. It's important stuff. So we'll dive into that. But let's. This is just some NBC News's takeaways from the State of the Union. I don't think I'm going to read it. I think I just have it here to have something. Let's. It doesn't fit very well in the box here. Let's do. Actually, before we go further, let's see what's on. Let's see what's going on today on C-SPAN. Let's see who's. You know what we didn't watch? You know, it might be kind of interesting, guys. I didn't plan this for today, but I was so tired and so shot yesterday after the State of the Union. I didn't have a chance to watch Abigail Spring. I never remember her name. I never had a chance to watch her rebuttal. And if you guys are up for it, since we're kind of chilling today and I don't have any like real plans for the live, let's take a look. Abigail Spangler, I don't know. But anyway, if you guys are open to it, let me know. Spanburger, thank you, Tina. Let's Spamburger, thank you. Let's listen to her State of the Union response. Are you guys cool with that? Or we could just talk. We could just talk for a few minutes. But if you guys are, just let me know in the live. This is Xenocracy is a democracy, my friends. It's a democracy. So let me know if I don't hear anything, I'm gonna take that as a yes, as that we're all good with it. So Lacey, you didn't see the response. Yeah, I didn't see it. I just saw little clips of it here and there. So why don't we check out the response? Google's doing some weird stuff, and maybe it'll just be. I think it'll be good for our mental health. So Tina, you saw it. It'll be good for our mental health to watch that after watching that debacle yesterday. By the way, I have confirmed in my own brain. I have a very big brain. My brain is very big. I've confirmed in my big brain. Hang on, where's my
that China has total respect for Donald Trump and for Donald Trump's very, very large brain.
A brain. I have a very large brain. But let's bring Governor, and especially since we had two, we had a congresswoman from Virginia yesterday and a potential congressman from Virginia. Maybe it's, having the Virginia governor, speak might be helpful. Let's see. Let's do that, America.
With Adobe Acrobat AI Assistant, I
moment.
can summarize
Memento,
key
my
contract
friends.
details in seconds so that I can
skip this,
confidently
I will.
explain it to both a buyer and a seller. AI Assistant helps me focus on what really matters,
If I can
helping
skip it, I
people
will, but it
find
looks like
a
I
place
can't.
that they can call home.
There we go.
Good evening. Good evening and welcome to historic Williamsburg.
Oh,
We are gathered here.
hang on, Tina. That was before we because Tina's comment. I was blown away by that yesterday. Tina just said he said the winning clip you play, and I laughed hard. That fucked my conscience, not my conscience, but that threw me off. I can't even in the best way. That was, for me, that was the best moment of the live stream when that idiot started, playing, saying that clip, and I was, it was the winning. It was this one.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning, and you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning.
Now that was the clip that, the sound effect that I have. That wasn't the clip from yesterday, but he caught on to that yesterday and he started doing it. He started saying it. And I just went, those of you who are with me, I just lost it, right? I mean, it was like it was such a great moment for my sound effects, right? Throwback, that's exactly it. Okay, anyway, let's listen to the governor.
The chambers of the House of Burgesses. In 1705, the people of the Virginia colony gathered here to take on the extraordinary task of governing themselves. Before there was a Declaration of Independence, a Constitution, or a Bill of Rights, there were people in this room. The people who served here ultimately dreamed of what a new nation, unlike anything the world had ever seen, could be. The United States was founded on the idea that ordinary people could reject the unacceptable excesses of poor leadership, band together to demand better of their government, and create a nation that would be an example for the world. And this year, as we celebrate 250 years since America declared our independence from tyranny, I can think of no better place to speak to you as we reflect on the current state of our union. Tonight, as we watched our nation's lawmakers gather for a joint session of Congress, we did not hear the truth from our president. So let's speak plainly and honestly. And let me ask you, the American people watching at home, 3 questions. Is the president working to make life more affordable for you and your family? Is the president working to keep Americans safe both at home and abroad? Is the president working for you? As I campaigned for governor last year, I traveled to every corner of Virginia, and I heard the same pressing concern everywhere. Costs are too high in housing, healthcare, energy, and childcare. And I know these same conversations are being had all across this country. Because since this president took office last year, his reckless trade policies have forced American families to pay more than $1,700 each in tariff costs. Small businesses have suffered, farmers have suffered, some losing entire markets. Everyday Americans are paying the price. And even though the Supreme Court struck these tariffs down 4 days ago, the damage to us, the American people, has already been done. Meanwhile, the president is planning for new tariffs, another massive tax hike on you and your family. And Republicans in Congress, they remain unwilling to assert their constitutional authority to stop him. They're making your life harder. They're making your life more expensive. They're even making it more difficult to see a doctor. Rural health clinics in Virginia and across the country are already closing their doors thanks to the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, championed by the president and Republicans in Congress. And tonight, the president celebrated this law, the one threatening rural hospitals, stripping health care from millions of Americans and driving up costs in energy and housing, all while cutting food programs for hungry kids. But here in Virginia, I am working with our state legislature to lower costs and make the Commonwealth more affordable. And it's not just me. Democrats across the country are laser focused on affordability in our nation's capital and in state capitals and communities across America. In the most innovative and exceptional nation in the history of the world, Americans deserve to know that their leaders are focused on addressing the problems that keep them up at night. Problems that dictate where you live, whether you can afford to start a business or whether you have to skip a prescription in order to buy groceries. So I'll ask again, is the president working to make life more affordable for you and your family? We all know the answer is no. I grew up in a house of service. My mother was a nurse, and my father was a career law enforcement officer. I began my career by following in my father's footsteps as a federal agent working money laundering and narcotics cases. I worked side by side with local and state police to keep our community safe and to uphold and enforce the law. Law enforcement officers across the country know that it is a unique responsibility to do the serious work of investigating crimes, comforting victims, and making arrests. It's about building trust, and that requires an abiding sense of duty and commitment to community. And yet, our president has sent poorly trained federal agents into our cities, where they have arrested and detained American citizens and people who aspire to be Americans. And they have done it without a warrant. They have ripped nursing mothers away from their babies. They have sent children, a little boy in a blue bunny hat, children to far-off detention centers. And they have killed American citizens in our streets. And they have done it all with their faces masked from accountability. Every minute spent sowing fear is a minute not spent investigating murders, crimes against children, or the criminals defrauding seniors of their life savings. Our president told us tonight that we are safer because these agents arrest mothers and detain children. Think about that. Our broken immigration system is something to be fixed, not an excuse for unaccountable agents to terrorize our communities. After working in law enforcement, I continued my career of service as a CIA officer, working undercover to protect the United States and our allies from global threats, terrorism, nuclear weapons, and the aggression of adversarial nations around the globe. But as the president spoke of his perceived successes tonight, he continues to cede economic power and technological strength to Russia, bow down to China, bow down to a Russian dictator, and make plans for war with Iran. Here's the truth. Over the last year, through DOGE, mass firings, and the appointment of deeply unserious people to our nation's most serious positions, our president has endangered the long and storied history of the United States of America being a force for good. So I'll ask again, is the president working to keep Americans safe, both at home and abroad? We all know the answer is no. In his speech tonight, the president did what he always does. He lied, he scapegoated, and he distracted. And he offered no real solutions to our nation's pressing challenges, so many of which he is actively making worse. He tries to divide us. He tries to enrage us, to pit us against one another, neighbor against neighbor. And sometimes he succeeds. And so you have to ask, who benefits from his rhetoric, his policies, his actions, the short list of laws he's pushed through this Republican Congress? Somebody must be benefiting. He's enriching himself, his family, his friends. The scale of the corruption is unprecedented. There's the cover-up of the Epstein files, the crypto scams, cozying up to foreign princes for airplanes and billionaires for ballrooms, putting his name and face on buildings all over our nation's capital. This is not what our founders envisioned, not by a long shot. So I'll ask again, is the president working for you? We all know the answer is no. But here's the special thing about America. On our 250th anniversary, we know better than any nation what is possible when ordinary citizens, like those who once dreamed right here in this room, reject the unacceptable and demand more of their government. We see it in the determination of students organizing school walkouts all across the country, whose voices are becoming so powerful that the governor of Texas seeks to silence them. We see it in the bravery of Americans in Minnesota standing up for their communities, from peacefully protesting in sub-zero temperatures to carpooling children to school so that their immigrant parents are not ripped away from them in the parking lot. As a mother of 3 school-aged daughters, I am inspired by their bravery, but I am sickened that it is necessary. And Americans across the country are taking action. They are going to the ballot box to reject this chaos. With their votes, they are writing a new story, a more hopeful story. In November, I won my election by 15 points. And we won 13 new seats in our state legislature. Because voters decided they wanted something different. Our campaign earned votes from Democrats, Republicans, independents, and everyone in between. Because they knew as citizens they could demand more, that they could vote for what they believe matters, and that they didn't need to be constrained by a party or political affiliation. This is happening across the country. New Jersey elected Mikey Sherrill as governor in a double-digit victory. Democrats flipped state legislative seats in places like Georgia, Iowa, Mississippi, and Texas. The list goes on and on. Ordinary Americans are stepping up to run in the spirit of our forefathers. They are running to demand more and to do more for their neighbors and communities. I know the story well. I first ran for office in 2018 alongside dozens of other Democrats who did the seemingly impossible, flipping 41 seats in Congress. In my case, I was the first Democrat elected in 50 years, swinging our district 17 points. Those who are stepping up now to run will win in November because Americans, you at home, know you can demand more and that we are working to lower costs. We are working to keep our communities and our country safe, and we are working for you. In his farewell address, George Washington warned us about the possibility of, quote, cunning, ambitious, and unprincipled men rising to power. But he also encouraged us, all Americans, to unite in a common cause, to move this nation forward. That is our charge once more, and that is what we are seeing across the country. It is deeply American and patriotic to do so, and it is how we ensure that the state of our union remains strong, not just this year, but for the next 250 years as well, because we, the people, have the power to make change, the power to stand up for what is right, the power to demand more of our nation. May God bless the Commonwealth of Virginia, and may God bless the United States of America.
Thank you, Tina. Sorry about that, guys. That was good. That was really good. I wonder if we're looking at a future presidential candidate as soon as 2028, even. Um, when the when the governor first started speaking, I thought, you could tell immediately that she was a good orator, and you could tell immediately that she's got a great speechwriter. And you could tell immediately why she won the election in Virginia. But I still thought, because I'm a loudmouth with a bad attitude who likes bad words and who likes to really hammer Republicans for their behavior and the village idiot Donald Trump. And I, ever since January 20th of 2025, and even before, I've been calling for that. And it took a while, it took a couple months, but we started hearing that. We started hearing my calls for, for using the awful things, every awful thing that the village idiot Donald Trump does and that the goofballs around him do, and using that as content to hammer them down politically. And Gavin Newsom was the first big political name to start doing it successfully. And I mean, that doesn't mean, yes, AOC was doing it. Jasmine Crockett was doing it before him. Senator Chris Murphy, Senator Chris Van Hollen, they were doing it. They were some of the first to step up and step out before Newsom. But Newsom was the first one to gain really national exposure doing it, right? And then as things got progressively worse, the gloves came off, and we started to we started to see that across the board. I felt better. Lacey, I thought the same, Mitch. Afraid of women on the ticket with all the misogyny in the U.S., she would be a great VP as well. I mean, it's a fair concern. I don't necessarily feel the same way. I know there's a strong. I'm going to get back to what I was saying in a second, but just to get to Lacey's point here, there's a strong concern that a woman can't win because there was so much talk after Kamala lost that certainly the United States still wasn't ready to elect a woman, and certainly not a woman of color. As things have moved on and time, as I've had time to think about it myself and, kind of digest what happened, I don't think that's it. I really think I think Kamala lost because of the price of groceries and because of her association with Biden. And I think that's it. And, I think, I don't know what the governor would be like in a general election, in a primary season, in a general election season. I mean, she's very impressive here. But in general, I don't feel like, it's a political scarlet letter if oh, I know, Lacey. I know you would like to see a woman, and I know it's just, and look, I don't, you, and I know you, I know you don't want to be right, and you might be right, by the way. I mean, these are just all we can share is our opinions, right, and our feelings, and we can try to make sense of them, right? So for me, I think it was about money. I think Americans are less so now entitled and lazy in terms of expecting democracy to be there. I think we've learned a lesson, and they just didn't like that eggs cost too much money. And that was Biden's fault as far as they were concerned. And they were willing to vote for this fucking idiot. But I mean, we'll see, we'll see. There's, 2028 is around the corner, but we have some time. So we'll see what happens. But when the governor's speech first started, though, as much as I was really kind of feeling it a little bit, I also was like, oh man, she's not going to hammer him hard enough. We're not going to get that rhetorical, pounding that I want to see. She's not going to beat the shit out of Trump rhetorically. And that speech was so effective. His speech, if you can call it that, was so effective for that. It was so useful to beat the shit out of that speech, right? But as she went on with her speech, And especially when she started to get to the stuff about ICE and the stuff about children, and you could feel her passions, her frustrations, her anger boiling, but yet her integrity and her measured, her willingness to demand that she's a professional and measure her response. I liked it. I liked it, and because she wasn't enraged, and she wasn't name calling. Maybe that's my job now, right? And not theirs. I still need to see politicians do that, but because she wasn't doing that, she was able to really effectively clarify every point that she made. And like I think Lacey, you had mentioned during the speech, I think I noticed it. I think it was Lacey, that her message was it was simple, it was straightforward. It was there was no policy, wonkiness that could confuse, anybody watching the speech. There was no there was no there was just no complication. It was just such a wonderfully written and effective and delivered speech. And anyone, somebody who is not even paying attention to politics, or somebody who is, living in politics, would have come out of there with a very clear perception of what her message was, and a very clear takedown of the validity of Donald Trump and the Republicans in Congress. It was just excellent. So I think it was. I think this is the first time in a very long time I can say that the response to a State of the Union was really good, and it really hit the mark, and it really worked. And that's just not something that ever happens, on either side of the aisle. So I'm glad we watched that, guys. I feel a lot better, now that we saw that. It is just that was a great speech. And it was there will be a moment, in the not too distant future when we need to see politicians calling the village idiot names again and going at him hard. But when Americans, I don't know, look, how many Americans watch the rebuttal to the State of the Union? Who knows? Not that many. But when you juxtapose the rambling, idiotic, racist, ignorant, hateful, performative, incoherent, babbling speech that Donald Trump gave against, that speech, there's no comparison. FRH, this is the first time I've heard a response from State of the Union. Have they been happening for years, or is this the first? No. And look, I get it, because most people, after sitting through a State of the Union speech, are not interested in sticking around. It's mostly like those of us that are just really into politics that will stick around. That they've been going on for years and years and years and years and years. The rebuttal, and it's not. Even a good one like this, it's not something that very many people pay attention to or see. The most memorable State of the Union response, next to this one for me, was Marco Rubio. And I think it was when Marco Rubio was doing a response to one of Obama's State of the Union speeches. And it was only memorable because it was so bad. Do you guys remember this? Marco Rubio trying to give the speech. He's a nervous fucking wreck. He's ill prepared. His speech is laughably ridiculous. Like, it doesn't mean anything. And he was sweating. And remember, he had this like little water bottle, and he's like picking up the water bottle and, every few minutes and drinking. And then at one point he's like, picks up the water bottle with both his, and it was a little water bottle, with both his hands. And it was It was a horrific speech, and that's before Marco Rubio was little Marco. Before Marco Rubio was this pathetic shell of a politician. That he no, he doesn't, Patty Ann. He does not come off as confident or competent. Okay, guys. So that was that. I think the governor's speech was far more effective than I could have or would have been in just kind of talking about the State of the Union. So I'm really glad that we had an opportunity to share that together, to watch that together. So this NPR story, it broke yesterday. And in my humble opinion, for whatever that is worth, it was the worst moment to break a story. I don't know why they opted to publish this particular story on the day of State of the Union. Because one, it's a deep investigative dive. It's a fucking good journalism. And it got lost. Midas Touch News Network was pushing it. I was trying to push it on my socials. I know, but even a lot of the folks in Chorus, who have much larger accounts than I do, that I've come to know, even a lot of them, as they would have been all over this story, but because they were so hyper dialed in to State of the Union preparation, they just couldn't find the time to make content about it and to make the story and to make the story move. And it's really it's such an important story in the moment, and I just wish that NPR would have waited. Fuck it, they could have waited till Monday, to put this story out, and it would have been the story. In a nutshell, before we read any of it, are you guys familiar? I think I talked about it on the live, but I don't even remember because I'm trying to put out so much content. Half the time I don't remember what I do live and what I do in recorded content for other platforms, right? But does anybody remember? We've been talking about, or I've been talking about, there was a story about a woman who came forward in 2019 to, brought well, first the woman reported on an FBI tip line. It was, remember that document when in the second dump of the Epstein documents, and we were kind of going through them, and we actually came across that document. I think we did, or maybe somebody else did, and then we looked for it. But there was a document. It had yellow highlighter on it, and it was an FBI tip line document, and it was full of predominantly of people who had called in to the FBI tip line to file a complaint of sexual abuse against the village idiot Donald Trump, right? And most of the accusations in that document were not followed up by the FBI. They said, in the document we could see that they suggested it wasn't credible, or that when they tried to follow up with the accuser couldn't reach the accuser, whatever the case may be. There was one claim though that was not blown off. We didn't know at the time what the follow-up was, but we just knew that it wasn't. We could just tell from the document it hadn't been blown off. And it was about a woman who claimed, now I don't know, I still haven't been able to figure out, I don't know if anybody knows this, but it was a woman that I don't know if the FBI tip came in 2019, or she just met with FBI agents in 2019. The tip may have come in earlier. I don't know. But the claim goes back to an experience that she unfortunately had back in the early 1980s. The claim was that the village idiot was introduced to her through Jeffrey Epstein, and that I can't even say it. I can't say it. I mean, if we can read it, I'll read it. I can't bring myself to say it, but it was just basically he sexually assaulted her when she did what I guess she felt she needed to do to defend herself or to protect herself. He kicked her and hit her or something. And irrespective of and the claim is horrific. It's just fucking horrific. But I could see him doing it. Irrespective, we learned from the Epstein files, from people pouring through these Epstein files, we learned that the FBI took the claim very seriously. And they interviewed her. First, we knew that they interviewed her one time because there was one file in there that suggested she was interviewed once. What we found out subsequently, recent weeks, was that she was interviewed 4 times. Now, this is before this NPR story when all this was coming out. That completely proves to us that the Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche lied, right? And the village idiot lied. The village idiot said, "I could tell you the files exonerate me from any wrongdoing. I am completely exonerated. Look at Clinton," or whatever, right? And Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche have also said that the files exonerate the village idiot Donald Trump. He didn't do anything. There was nothing he was credibly accused of. That was a lie. And the fact that the FBI met with this woman means that the FBI took the allegations seriously enough to investigate. So it proves that's unequivocal. You could prove it in court if you had to. The village idiot, sociopath Pam Bondi, and dingbat Todd Blanche are lying about that. There's no question. So this story, and we'll get into it. I don't want to screw it up. This story takes that reporting further. And the Stephen Fowler, I'm looking at his name right now, I guess he's the reporter on the story, was able to determine that not only was the FBI, did the FBI meet with this woman 4 times, but there are other files about those meetings. And the Department of Justice is intentionally covering it up to protect the village idiot Donald Trump. So let's read a little bit of it so I don't mess up the facts. Justice Department withheld and removed some Epstein files related to Trump. The Justice Department has withheld some Epstein files related to allegations that President Trump sexually abused a minor. Oh, that's right. And that was the other thing I forgot to say. When this happened in the 80s, the young girl was between 13 and 15 years old. The President Trump sexually abused a minor, an NPR investigation finds. It also removed some documents from the public database where accusations against Jeffrey Epstein also mentioned Trump. So the article is talking about 2 different but related instances. The first one is that the Department of Justice withheld Epstein files that are related to the allegations that Trump sexually assaulted a minor. And the Epstein and the Department of Justice also removed some documents from the public database. So it was documents that were released, but they mention accusations against Jeffrey Epstein that also mentions the village idiot Trump. Some of these files have not been made public despite a law mandating their release. These include what appear to be more than 50 pages of interviews, as well as notes from conversations with a woman who accused Trump of sexual abuse decades ago when she was a minor. So remember, that's the whole story there. We're going to read a lot more, but that's the whole story. Some of the files have not been made public despite a law mandating the release. That includes what appear to be more than 50 pages of FBI interviews, as well as notes from conversations with a woman who accused Trump of sexual abuse decades ago when she was a minor. NPR reviewed multiple sets of unique serial numbers appearing before and after the pages in question, stamped onto the documents in the Epstein files database, FBI case records, emails, and discovery document logs in the latest tranche of documents published at the end of January. NPR's investigation found dozens of pages that appear to be cataloged by the Justice Department but not shared publicly. And again, this is irrefutable proof that they're hiding those documents. NPR, I'm sure, has the receipts if they need to present them. NPR reviewed multiple sets of unique serial numbers appearing before and after the pages in questions, stamped onto the documents in the Epstein files database. And they reviewed case records, emails, and discovery logs in the latest tranche of documents. And they were, through looking at that data, they were able to determine that more than 50 pages related to the alleged sexual assault of this young woman by Donald Trump are not there. The Justice Department declined to answer NPR's questions on the record about these specific files, what's in them, and why they are not published. After publication, the Justice Department reached out to NPR, taking issue with how its responses to questions were framed. Department of Justice spokeswoman Natalie Baldessari reiterated the DOJ's stance that any documents not published or privileged are duplicates or relate to an ongoing federal investigation. So NPR says, you want to comment on these? You motherfuckers are hiding 50 documents at least, if not more, and here's the proof. Here's the data we have. So the spokesperson, Natalie Baldessari, the Trump sycophantic weirdo, whoever she is, comes back and says, they don't give them an answer, but they say, we don't like your questions. Your questions are framed wrong. And instead, instead of answering your questions, we're just going to repeat that we didn't publish anything that's privileged, which means executive privilege, right? That's for some reason the village idiot can't or won't share these because he has the authority through the executive privilege of the President of the United States to not share them because he has that right. And he and the Department of Justice are deciding what has fucking executive privilege. Duplicates, why not release the duplicates then? Who gives a shit? Shut us all the fuck up and release the duplicates. The law says you have to release everything, even the duplicates. Or relate to an ongoing federal investigation. And, if they're pretending to investigate Clinton, if they're pretending that Ghislaine Maxwell, angling for a pardon, still can be considered an open investigation. There are a plethora of excuses why there's an open investigation, a pretend investigation, that precludes them from releasing the documents. And just bear with me, guys. I'm just going to turn my ring light on here because it's getting dark. And the sun's going down a bit. Okay, let's see how this works. All right, that's a little bit better, right? I think it is. Following NPR's reporting, the House Oversight Committee's ranking member, Representative Robert Garcia, Democrat of California, released a statement about the missing files. Yesterday, I reviewed unredacted evidence logs at the Department of Justice Oversight. Oversight Democrats can confirm that the Department of Justice appears to have illegally withheld FBI interviews with the survivor who accused President Trump of heinous crimes, Garcia said. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee have already been investigating the allegations against the president and will now open a parallel investigation into the DOJ's decision not to release these particular documents. And guys, thank you for your patience on this. I know I've been, I know when I read, it can get kind of boring. But I just think sometimes for the lives, I mean, I don't always do it, but I think sometimes for the live streams, um, we have this opportunity to go deeper, and it's so easy to fuck up the facts, right? And it's so easy to muddy the waters, especially with my opinionated babble nonstop, that I just feel like if we take the time sometimes on an important story like this and we kind of read through it together and break it down together, I feel like it arms us with with knowledge of the actual truth, as opposed to, the portions of the truth that I might regurgitate when I'm sharing my opinions. And sometimes, not sometimes, oftentimes, I don't get it all right. So I like to do this way. Oh, thank you, Kim. Well, I mean, I'm self-loathing, you know, all look, I'm just as fucked up in terms of being self-critical as the next person. But thank you, Kimmy. I have imposter syndrome. I'm self-loathing. I have all that shit. I admit I'm insecure. Sometimes I lack confidence. Sometimes I'm the polar opposite, but sometimes I do feel that way, and I'm absolutely willing to admit that because I'm always striving to be more confident, more secure. But in terms of this, that's not. I don't think, Kimmy, that's not my self-loathing insecurity is not where I'm coming from in terms of my explanation for this. I know that when I watch influencers, um, sometimes they're doing something and I don't really understand why, and I just want to kind of move on. And maybe this is just me too. And every so often, I have this sense when I'm watching like a long-winded diatribe that I find uninteresting, and I want to just kind of bail and move away from that video that I'm watching or something. And and um and if the influencer, I feel like, just explain to me what the value of this is. Why should I sit here and listen to this? I might stay. And again, maybe I'm overthinking it, but every so often when I'm reading, that kind of pops into my mind, especially for folks that might be new to the live. I feel like it's a responsibility that I have to explain why I do it and why it matters. And even if it might not be clickbaitish, why it's worth it to stick around. Like, what are we sort of arming ourselves with as we get this information? I don't know. I just feel that, and that could be my own insecurities too, and I get that too. But that's more where it's coming from, and that's why every so often when I'm reading, I kind of bring it up, and I always try to read the room. Whether or not I'm good at that is another story. So if I feel a sense that if I feel the energy that I might be losing some folks, then I just jump in and I try to explain things. That's a story there. Anyway, thank you. Oh, thank you, Kibby. Thank you so much. And Kibby, look, again, be self-loathing. I try my best not to do clickbait in the lives because I don't think it helps. But I have to admit, now that I'm learning social media, I do clickbait in Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, because I got to build the communities, and sometimes clickbait is the only way to do it. But I digress. Thank you so much. Where were we, guys? Democrats in the House over. Oh, we already read that. Other files scrubbed. So this is the second instance, right? Remember, the first instance is that this article is going to touch on are the files, right, that the DOJ has intentionally hidden. The files related to these FBI conversations with this woman who alleged that the village idiot sexually abused her back in the 80s when she was between 13 and 15 years old. The second part of the article here are files that were specific types of files that were released, right? And then good reporters citizen journalists and reporters, independent reporters mostly, found all this stuff, started talking about it. It started some of these files started getting a lot of buzz online. That buzz made its way up into legacy media, and then the DOJ pulled those files and then put some of them back. And that's what this second part is about. Other files scrubbed from public view pertain to a separate woman who was a key witness for the prosecution at the criminal trial of Epstein co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell, who is serving a 20-year prison sentence for sex trafficking. Maxwell is seeking clemency from Trump. Some of those documents were briefly taken down and put back online last week, while others remained hidden. Now, the DOJ's argument for this is we just do it to redact. You know, when a document comes to our attention and we have to do more redactions because we didn't get it right the first time, that's why we're doing it. And it's bullshit. While others remain hidden. According to NPR's comparison of the initial database from January 30th, with document metadata and those files currently on the Justice Department website, NPR does not name victims of sexual abuse. When asked for comment about the missing pages and accusations against the president, a White House spokesperson told NPR that Trump, quote, has done more for Epstein's victims than anyone before him, end quote. Just as the president has said he's been totally exonerated on anything relating to Epstein, White House spokesperson and sycophantic ass-kisser, that was my editorializing, Abigail Jackson told NPR in a statement. And by releasing the thousands of pages of documents, cooperating with the House Oversight Committee's subpoena request, signing the Epstein Files Transparency Act, and calling for more investigations into Epstein's Democrat friends, President Trump has done more. I'm just getting a little excited here, guys, but I can't stop. President Trump has done more for Epstein's victims than anyone before him. Meanwhile, Democrats like Hakeem Jeffries and Stacey Plaskett have yet to explain why they were soliciting money in meetings from Epstein when he was a convicted sex offender. The White House has previously pointed to a statement from the Justice Department that says Epstein files contain, quote, untrue, sensationalist claims about the president. In a February 14th letter to members of Congress, first reported by Politico, Attorney General Pam Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche insist that no records were withheld or redacted, quote, on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, political sensitivity, including that to any government official, public figure, or foreign dignitary, end quote. According to the newly released files, the FBI internally circulated Epstein-related allegations that mentioned Trump in late July and early August 2025. The list collected from the FBI's National Threat Operations Data Center. Now remember, that document may have been created in August of 2025, but it doesn't mean that these allegations came in August of 2025. It's just when according to newly released files, the FBI internally circulated Epstein-related allegations. So that's when they circulated that document. It doesn't mean the document was created necessarily. In late 2025, the list collected from the FBI's National Threat Operations Center included numerous salacious allegations. Agents marked most of the allegations as unverifiable or not credible. But one lead was sent to the FBI's Washington office with the purpose of setting up an interview with the accuser. The lead was included in an internal PowerPoint slide detailing prominent names in the Epstein and Maxwell investigations last fall. We've already covered all this. This particular part was broken by, I can't remember his name. Is it David Schlossenberger? He's that independent journalist on Substack who broke this originally and has been writing kind of nonstop about it. I think I have his name right, but I'm not sure. The woman who directly named Trump in her abuse allegations claimed that around 1983, when she was around 13 years old, Epstein introduced her to Trump, quote, I'm just going to read it. It's hard to read, but I'm going to read it. Quote, who subsequently forced her head down to his exposed penis, which she subsequently bit. In response, Trump punched her in the head and kicked her out, end quote. Out of more than 3 million pages of files released by the Justice Department in recent months, this specific allegation against Trump appears only in copies of the FBI list of claims and the DOJ slideshow. But a review of the FBI case file logs and discovery documents turned over to Maxwell and her attorneys in the criminal case against her point to one place the claim would have come and how serious the investigators took it. The FBI interviewed this Trump and Epstein accuser 4 times. That is according to an FBI serial report and a list of non-testifying witness material in the Maxwell case that were also released under the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Only the first interview, conducted July 24th, 2019, is in the public database. That interview does not mention Donald Trump. So where are the rest of them? Where are the other 3? Tell us, Pam. Tell us, Todd. Of the 15 documents listed in a log of the Maxwell discovery material for the first accuser, only 7 are in the Epstein file database. Those missing also include notes that accompany 3 of the interviews. The discrepancy in the file for the Trump accuser was first reported by independent journalist Roger Sollenberger. Thank you. I wanted to get his name right earlier, and we read Roger's reporting, his excellent reporting, last week. According to NPR's reviews of 3 different sets of serial numbers stamped onto the file, there appear to be 53 pages of interview documents and notes missing from the public Epstein database. And I guess these are the serial numbers. If we take a minute and look at them, see if we can make sense of them. So that's your serial number 350104-001. Or is this a serial number? EFTA 005-7715, EFTA 0124. I can't make sense of that. I'll take their word for it. Gaps in serial numbers suggest more than 50 pages haven't been published publicly. And it looks like that's just so this is page 9, page 1. I'm just going to take their word for it. I don't want to kind of dive into that. In her first interview, the woman discussed ways Epstein abused her as a girl, and in identifying him to investigators, showed a cropped photo of the disgraced financier. Her attorney said it was cropped because she, quote, was concerned about implicating additional individuals, and specifically any that were well known due to fear of retaliation. That was the photo that we've all seen of the idiot and Epstein. The FBI agents noted it was a widely distributed photograph of Epstein with Trump. The woman whose biographical details and description of Epstein's abuse found in the FBI interview is also line up with details from a victim lawsuit. In the December 2019 filing, quote, Jane Doe number 4, end quote, does not mention Donald Trump, and the woman voluntarily dismissed her case against Epstein's estate in December 2021. That's because there was a settlement. Epstein's estate paid her off. Attorneys for this accuser declined to comment. Elsewhere in the released Epstein files, someone in the FBI wrote on July 22nd, 2025, before the list and slide presentation were compiled, that Trump's name was in the larger case files and that, quote, one identified victim claimed abuse by Trump, but ultimately refused to cooperate, end quote. And it's a pretty long article. I'd like to go into this second part, guys, but I kind of have to wrap the live, and I want to see what you guys have to say. So we'll leave this article here. If you want to check it out for yourself, just go to npr.org. It's no longer the top story, but it's down a little bit. And just pick up right here. Second accuser says she met Trump at Mar-a-Lago, and you've got a good, just a few, another page. Lacey, what can be done about this? Does Congress have to force the release or the Supreme Court? I'm sure we'll never see this. Maybe, I don't know. I suppose both, right? I mean, Congress has already done its job to force the release, right? I mean, I'm sure there's more they could do. They could hold the Department of Justice in contempt. They won't. They could force Bondi back to Capitol Hill to testify specifically about this. They could, I suppose, someone, I don't know if it would be Congress or the victims, could sue Donald Trump, and this could go to the Supreme Court, and maybe the Supreme Court could say you have to release all of them. I don't think they would still do it anyway. So I don't know. I know that there's unrelated, though, there's legislation right now that's kind of pushing this indirectly. You guys may have heard about it. It's being a referendum is being co-sponsored, I think, by Nancy Mace. I shit you not, Lauren Boebert, and Anna. What the fuck is her name? It's Anna Luna. I may have her name wrong. I apologize for that. These are obviously three MAGA Republicans, but they are pushing for a vote that would force Congress to release a list of all of the sexual abusers in Congress, all of the alleged sexual abusers in Congress over the years. And apparently, according to Nancy Mace, there's a congressional slush fund that has been used to settle with all these victims, to pay them off and to shut them up. And there's a strong push for this. You may see, obviously, I'm sure Ro Khanna and Massey are going to get behind this as well, although they're not the ones spearheading this. But I wouldn't be surprised. Nancy Mace is pretty much, I've seen some interviews with her. She's pretty much on fire and determined to get this done. Lauren Boebert is not going to bend on this. I think it's Anna Pauline. I think that's her name. It doesn't seem like any of them are going to bend on this. I think we could see another discharge petition if Mike Johnson tries to bury it in committee. So we'll see what happens. But although it's not, Lacey, directly related to this, it's still pushing that narrative through the political zeitgeist, right? It's pushing that narrative through that world where men in Congress are protecting the village idiot Donald Trump, and the village idiot Donald Trump is inadvertently protecting them and other men here in the U.S. And now, if these motherfuckers get rattled, especially Republicans, and they're very well as probably Democrats too, and expose it all. But a lot of these Republican cowards, if they get rattled because their infidelities and also sexual abuses that they've used taxpayer-funded dollars to pay off, if that stuff gets exposed, and any of it rises to the level of illegality, on the one hand, they may be, trying to save their self politically. They may be trying to align with Donald Trump, maybe get a pardon or avoid an investigation from the DOJ. On the other hand, Trump might throw them under the bus, and then, who knows? So it'll be interesting to see where this goes. But somehow I think the dam eventually breaks. I really think this, Lacey. I think the pot is boiling. It's not simmering anymore. The lid is going to blow off at some point. I do not think it is. I do think they're going to come. Everything's going to come out. Whatever hasn't been destroyed. And whatever they have destroyed, if they've destroyed anything, we're going to know that it's been destroyed as well. I think it's all going to come out. I think everything is going to come out. Anyway, That's what I think. Anyway, guys, let me wrap the live now. I just have a couple minutes. I have to run to the bathroom real fast and get back from my daily briefing. Thank you so much for being here. I know I'm a little low energy today. I just had a couple hours of sleep last night because I went to bed so late and got up so early. But I'll be back to my usual obnoxious self tomorrow. Tomorrow, the live will be probably a little out of whack. I'm not sure what time it is going to be. We have to take the dog for an appointment tomorrow, a doggy appointment. I have an eye doctor appointment tomorrow, and I have to squeeze them in. So, and on Thursday, so probably I'm thinking probably more about 1:30, 2 o'clock. I may even miss the live tomorrow. So just I apologize, guys, if I can't squeeze it in tomorrow. And then Thursday, I'm hoping we have Jacob Ward. We haven't been able to confirm yet, so I'm not sure that. If not, it'll be our regular live. I love you guys 1 minute at a time, 1 hour at a time. 1 day at a time, one live at a time. Thank you for everything. I'll see you guys hopefully tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow. If not, definitely Thursday. Be well, everybody.